Well, hi everyone. I'm John Ritland, and this is a real honest rant about WWE's Charlotte Flair problem. Because let's be honest, over the years, it has really become a problem of her always being in the mix and in the title picture. And look, I want to say right at the beginning, I have never been the biggest Charlotte Flair fan, though I do respect the work that she has put in to improving and getting better. And I'm certainly not going to say she's a bad performer or a bad wrestler. And I'm also going to do my best to separate the character and the wrestler because that is something that I have failed to do at times, and so have others. So I don't know the backstage stuff. I'm just a wrestling fan. I don't have inside sources, or I'm not a journalist or any of that stuff. I'm just going to give my opinions as a wrestling fan. But I feel that now WWE has a major problem where Charlotte Flair is not the draw that they think she is. Now, is she good? Yes, she is good. But she has won so many goddamn championships, and she has held a lot of people down, or at least they booked her to hold a lot of people down, that it's to the point where Charlotte Flair vanished from TV for 6 months, I wouldn't miss her at all. Now, there are people that would, and if you are a Charlotte Flair fan, understand, you guys can be fans of her. That's totally cool, and I'm going to be as impartial as I can, but I am going to get a little bit angry because there have been some things that have happened with her winning championships and her winning some matches, like, during her career, especially lately, that has really pissed me the fuck off, and it's wrecked the runs of some people, in particular one individual that I will talk about here in a little bit. So I'm not going to break down everything in minute detail, but starting near the beginning, she did well in NXT. It took her a while to find her stride and everything, and eventually she would become NXT Women's Champion when Paige had to relinquish it, and her and Natty had that incredible match at the Takeover in May. It was the finals of the Women's Championship tournament. It was a great match. You had Ric Flair in Charlotte's corner and Brett and Natalia's corner. And they did great stuff. They would revisit that a number of years later. And Charlotte would be a good NXT Women's Champion at that time because she was a fresher face. Yes, she obviously got the shot because she was Ric Flair's daughter. I will not deny that she didn't put in some work and put in the work to get better, and they wanted to give her a shot. If she fell on her face, then they were just going to push her further down the card. Thankfully for her, and for many of the women that she worked with, Sasha, Bayley, Becky didn't necessarily get to work a singles program with Charlotte in NXT. You had a pretty damn good run. She went from, I think it was near the end of May 2014 to about mid-February 2015, where Sasha was able to capture the championship and then go on her run until she put over Bayley at TakeOver Brooklyn 1, and pretty much the best women's match WWE has put on in a while, or at least it's up there. I don't know. There could be some arguments to be made, but Charlotte was having good matches at that point. Now, were they great matches? I've been of the opinion that I always feel that Charlotte is a good performer, capable of greatness, but she is not a great performer, capable of being legendary. Because that's what her dad was. Now, she was never going to be her dad. They also need to stop trying to make her dad. Yes, lean into it some, but she is basically just a female Ric Flair, just without the charisma. Like, her charisma is about maybe a quarter of what her dad's is now. She just doesn't have that ability to talk people into the building. But also, it's a completely different time and all that, and that could be a whole different video about how people have to adjust to like modern wrestling and stuff like that, but I digress. She had a good run as NXT Women's Champion, and then would be called up along with Becky and Sasha, and you would get, in I believe it was July of 2015, that whole draft thing, and this is during Nikki Bella's Divas Championship reign, which was not good. And it was not good in part because she had her neck injury. That's not her fault, and it's unfortunate that she had her neck injury and that, that kind of hampered what she could have done in the ring. But also, it wasn't being booked all that well anyway, and it was just being strung along to break AJ Lee's record. WWE being just slightly spiteful, which they're not known for. Vince is never known for being spiteful, except all the fucking always. So, she gets a nephew with Nikki. Doesn't beat Nikki on that Raw just before Night of Champions, which kind of crippled Charlotte's run right there, because even though she won at Night of Champions, and yeah, she beat Nikki in the following rematch, I believe at Hell in a Cell, cool, okay, Charlotte's off and running with the Divas Championship, that horrible belt, and it was a terrible belt. I will call that a belt. Usually I call something a championship or say, hey, you're getting the strap. But no, that was a belt. That was a freaking trinket. That was an ugly ass belt. No fault of some of the women that held it. They did the best they could, especially since women's wrestling was not being taken seriously then. Charlotte was a part of why it was able to be taken seriously. But then you go all the way back to Paige and Emma at the first ever takeover event, as I call it, but it's first live NXT event, NXT Arrival. Charlotte was a part of, and so was Becky, so was Charlotte. Or not so was Charlotte, so was Sasha, and then so was Bayley. You got the 4 horsewomen, you got all that stuff, and look, the 4 horsewomen aren't the end-all, be-all, even though they're good. There are varying qualities. I feel Becky's more the complete package, and then you got Sasha ranked right below her, though Sasha needs to stop bumping like crazy. And then Bayley and Charlotte are kind of right there because Bayley's trying. Charlotte just doesn't have the personality, but she has the athletic ability. But anyway, so she's the champion. You have that Paige feud. Your little baby brother didn't have much fight in him, did he? Now, whether that was them, the brass, WWE brass telling Charlotte and Paige to do that, or whether it was Charlotte herself working that in. It was a terrible idea and kind of, gave people a bit of a sour opinion on Charlotte and, on like storylines in general. Like, edgy storylines are one thing, but just working that in for something that had a 3-week build, that was pretty damn dumb. She would limp along with matches and everything. That match with Paige wasn't all that great. Then she would have a match with Becky that would heat that up and build it up to the Royal Rumble 2016. And then you would involve Rick. This was my problem, is they were involving Rick. And I get it, using Ric Flair, the legendary Ric Flair, and he is a legend. Yes, he has had a lot of issues, and those are of his own doing in some cases. But at first, I understood why he was in Charlotte's corner. Okay, cool, give her a rub, help her out, and everything. But by that point, she didn't really need it. He got involved in the whole thing with Becky, and that wasn't all that good. But then Charlotte goes into a 3-way match with Becky and Sasha at WrestleMania 32. Now, I'm still on board with Charlotte being featured as the woman, as, the one to be focused on, because it made sense at that point. I still argue that Becky winning at Mania 32 would have been a better call, because I think that she really was on, a roll there, or even Sasha. But Charlotte won. The Divas Championship was retired. Thank fucking Christ. Get that ugly ass trinket out of the way. Even with the people that won it, it was an ugly ass trinket. And she would go on to have another few months run with that championship. And again, not hitting every single pay-per-view match that she had, but she would have, subsequent decent matches and stuff like that, and then would have that feud with Sasha, and would lose the championship on a Raw just out of nowhere. Okay, weird. Then thus would begin the TV wins for Sasha, and the pay-per-view wins for Charlotte. And they would toss the title back and forth, and people say, oh, it did something for the championship. There are those that can feel that it did something for the championship because it was a competition, who could be the best. Nobody could hold on to it because, Sasha had the advantage on TV for some reason, and Charlotte had the advantage on pay-per-view for some reason. And then what would happen is eventually Charlotte would beat Sasha for the final time at Roadblock. End of the line. And then would go on to have a little bit of a run until Bayley beat her at on a Raw in February 2017, which was weird because you thought it would have built up to Bayley winning it at Mania and would have been a big moment. Bayley beat her at Fastlane, I believe. And, and Charlotte would still have good matches on, some occasions, but by that point, that feud with Sasha is when I really started to sour on Charlotte. And it was more just on the idea of, okay, we're just trying to equal her father's, championship total. Not understanding that it wasn't just about the numbers. It was about carrying the championship, being the champion, and making the championship matter. And that didn't really help make it matter. And then Bayley wins it, and Bayley defends it successfully at WrestleMania. Charlotte, Sasha, and I believe Nia Jax were in the match. And cool, okay, why couldn't Bayley have won it there? Then Bayley goes off and does the whole thing with Alexa Bliss, and the moment of bliss, or, the This Is Your Life segment. Hooray! Charlotte would kind of tear around the mid-card, that kind of stuff. We get the Money in the Bank match, we do that. We would then get, and I believe this is when she suffered those injuries. I believe she had an implant that popped and had to get that fixed, or maybe that was 2018. The whole point is, she had something where she had to be, kind of work through it and stuff like that. And, those kind of injuries are no goddamn joke, in all seriousness. The That's part of the reason why I think implants are a bad idea in general in any kind of athletic line of work, because you're just asking for the women to suffer some kind of injury. And no, wrestling is not easy. It is an athletic, hard-hitting competition. It is a line of work. It is a competition, even though it's sports entertainment. But there are certain things that the company shouldn't make their women do, is my point. She moves to SmackDown. And, kind of putters around a little bit in the mid-card, kind of stuff. Then she has, again, some good matches. She beats Natalya before Survivor Series. She has her match that she has, and still has some good stuff going on. But then what bothered me most about this is where I started to even sour more on her, because she had matches like Ruby Riott, others. And I like Ruby, and hopefully Ruby can be utilized a little bit more. But she's champion, and then they're building up Asuka and everything, and Asuka wins the Women's Royal Rumble and decides to choose to face Charlotte. And you're thinking, okay, Asuka's going to be the one to beat Charlotte, beat her at Mania. And then I realized something as things were going on. I realized this heading into this Mania that just happened this weekend, or this past weekend. Charlotte's always going to win at the even-numbered WrestleManias. I mean, she was, let's see, if I'm right, she was part of, like, Triple H's, no. Was it part of Triple H's entrance at WrestleMania 30? She was. Her, Alexa, and Sasha, I think? It was the throne entrance. So she was part of that, and then she won the title, or retained the title at Mania 32, and then the whole thing with Asuka at 34, and then beat Rhea Ripley at 36. Don't worry, I'm going to get to that, because now I'm going to get a little bit angry. I went through all that stuff. Yes, not hitting every highlight, but getting to the point where fans wanted to see Asuka win. Most people wanted to see Asuka win. I mean, I think even some Charlotte fans did, but I don't know. I don't know about that. Here's what happened. Instead of Asuka winning and then doing the smart thing afterwards and failing to cash in, what they had is they completely torpedoed Asuka's streak and had Charlotte beat her in a match that was good. They did some hard-hitting stuff. Spanish Fly off the top. They did, some spots on the apron. They did some really, really good stuff. It was a hard-hitting match, but like a lot of Charlotte's matches, at this point, it was a good match and a dodgy finish, because we all knew what was going to happen. It was starting to become the Charlotte Flair problem, where, okay, you're just setting up these people and building them up just to have her knock them down, not understanding that Ric Flair was able to make people. Ric Flair was able to make a lot of people even in defeat. That 45-minute draw with Sting, the matches with Flair and Steamboat. And yes, I'm going back to the old traditional stuff. Even before that, him and Dusty helped make each other, even though they were two top guys at that point. You can do the same with the women. They just aren't doing that because they're thinking, oh, we're just going to smash Charlotte over everybody. And having a feature person, having one top woman, isn't the issue. You just need to have one with some fucking personality that isn't all in her implants. And I'm sorry, that is the case. Can she be a nice person in interviews? Sure. This isn't about the person. This is about the wrestling personality. This is about the person presented on camera that is basically seen as the Babe Ruth without nearly deserving the accolades that she's gotten. She has fought through a lot. She also doesn't know how to do a goddamn moonsault. And I'm not saying I can do a moonsault. I am not athletic by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, she shouldn't be doing that. She's athletic. She's tall. She can do some shit. The way she does figure 4 into the figure 8 is a good bridge. It's a good maneuver. It's a really good maneuver. It's effective. It's a variation and a twist on what her dad used to do. The problem is every time she does a goddamn moonsault, I'm thinking, fucking hell, almost anybody can do a better goddamn moonsault than that. Tenzan in New Japan at 50 plus years old can do a better moonsault, and he doesn't even really do much of a full rotation. And just that's something that just absolutely blows my mind. So anyway, Asuka loses, nukes Asuka right there. Asuka, I could do something about the fall of Asuka at some point, and I may do that, because as much as I love Asuka and as over as she still is, and she seems to be bulletproof as far as bad creative, she could have been so much more than she is now. That pretty much did it right there. They shook hands. Okay, I would have liked a little bit more, like anger and everything, Asuka being upset, but Okay, Asuka's like, hey, you were ready for Asuka. All right, whatever. And then Charlotte, because she got beat down by the Iconics, loses to Carmela, and Carmela cashes in successfully. The problem is Charlotte was still, even though Carmela rather would then feud with, she would then feud with Asuka, and that was a whole thing that just went absolutely nowhere. That did nothing for Asuka. You can be the biggest fan of Carmella in the world, and it was fucking bad. But Charlotte is still figured into, like, even if it's mid-card feud, she's still seen as the top one. Carmella may have been the champion, but she wasn't the focal point. So then we get to the three-way at Mania, SummerSlam, where it's Becky and Carmella and Charlotte. And it should have just been Becky and Carmella straight up, because they actually couldn't have done that, because then Becky would have exposed Carmella as being a complete trash heap and a dumpster fire in the goddamn ring. She can throw a super kick about as well as Shawn Michaels can see straight now. So they had Charlotte beat Carmella, good, because Carmella should have never been in the title picture anyway. Mella is Monopoly money, bring back that old joke. But Charlotte wins, did she pin Carmella, or did she pin Becky? I'm actually trying to think, because some of that's a little muddy to me, because I'm a little bit angry. The whole point is Carmella did not have the championship anymore. People were booing Charlotte. Becky smashes her, and I don't mean like that, beats the shit out of her, crowd chanting, you deserve it, you deserve it. The crowd had enough. The crowd had enough at Mania 34, and now the crowd was really turning on Charlotte. Now they twist back around a little bit later, but you deserve it, you deserve it. She would lose to Becky at the following pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell, I believe. Yeah, it was Hell in a Cell 2018. Oh boy, I got another rant where I'm going to talk about, that a match that took place there. It's going to be about the Reigns-Braun rivalry and Braun's stupid comments that he said that pretty much made me regret ever rooting for the guy. But anyway, we get all through that Becky feud, the Evolution match, which was incredible, should have main evented, and nothing against Ronda Rousey, and plenty against Nikki Bella, because she shouldn't have been in the goddamn ring at that point. But at least, I would have put Becky and Charlotte there, because they were the two premier workers. Ronda tried, and Ronda had some good matches, but Becky versus Charlotte was hotter. Both those women have worked well, especially Becky. Now, there were plenty of other women that were working really goddamn hard. The Riot Squad was losing 6-woman tag after 6-woman tag and lost one during this time that I mentioned this running gag there, because they just couldn't catch a break. Featuring women on top isn't the worst thing in the world. If you like women that are tops, that's all good, but I digress. We then go to Survivor Series, where it's where Becky got hurt because Nia Jax was a careless twat that liked to punch people. And it's like, it's amazing that she could actually hit a decent punch, but she couldn't do anything else in the goddamn ring. Though she did have a decent performance in the men's rumble. So we get that Survivor Series with Ronda, where Charlotte took Becky's place, and they did a DQ thing, and Charlotte was getting cheered because she had laid out Ronda Rousey. So now, suddenly, after a few months, they had kind of turned back to Charlotte's side. I think it was more they were just fed up with Ronda, I think is what it was, because Charlotte was still getting booed. We then get Asuka being included in the three-way women's ladder match. It's Charlotte, Asuka, and Becky. And Ronda gets involved, pushes both Becky and Charlotte off the ladder, and then we get Asuka winning the championship. Okay, cool. We had her stupidly lose at WrestleMania 34 and then job to, Corey's side piece, Carmela. And then we had, or at least side piece at the time. And then we have Asuka close the year as champion. She has an incredible match with Becky at the Royal Rumble, and then Becky and Charlotte are the last two in the Royal Rumble, because Becky has to win it, and as she should have. And okay, you're thinking Charlotte's going to be in a mid-card feud or something like that, or maybe they'll team her and somebody up. Maybe they'll team her and Lacey up and have them go for the tag team championships, something like that. No, what they fucking do is they take Asuka, who had all the hype in the world, again right after the Rumble. They include her in a feud with Mandy and Sonya. They could have worked, but didn't work because they were bound determined to basically bury Mandy and Sonya. The plan was to have Sonya against Asuka, but no, they couldn't have that because Mania 35 already had too many goddamn matches. So even instead of including them on the pre-show, which yes would have been a slap in the face, but still at least women would have gotten a match, No, they had Charlotte beat Asuka 2 weeks before Mania. Now, whether that was Asuka's, or not Asuka's call, Charlotte's call, or the company's call, it was fucking bullshit, and it just soured people on and got to where, great, now we just want Charlotte off our goddamn television. Because then it got really fucking stupid. Because Charlotte had to be SmackDown Women's Champion, Ronda Rousey had to be Raw Women's Champion, then you had to go with all this, and you had to go with all the bullshit, and Ronda would win, even though it should have been Ronda versus Becky. I could understand them including Charlotte, but she didn't need to have a championship. That was the thing. Put her in there because of the history like that. If they had kept the championship off of there and just had Asuka versus Sonya, whether it would have been a good match or not, I think it could have if they at least given them 8 to 10 minutes. No, they decided not to do that and just pretty much turn the heat right up on Charlotte. Okay, so Becky wins. Dodgy finish aside, holds the championships for a little bit. Charlotte wins it back, loses on the cash into Bayley, and then beats her at Hell in a Cell a little bit later. And I'm skipping ahead on this because I'm getting to the main point, the main crux of this thing, where I really started to have problems because Charlotte would lose to Bayley again, and Bayley would take out the wacky inflatable tube man and all that. And then the real problem came this year, where Charlotte won the Royal Rumble. She shouldn't have won the Royal Rumble. It should have been Shayna. Hell, have Bianca Belair win. Well, I mean, Bianca would have been in there an awfully long time, but Bianca was having a great performance. Have Shayna win. I'm not the biggest Shayna fan, but it made the most sense, and it would have actually been better to do something like that. But no, they had Charlotte win. Vince's Golden Girl and everything. And no, I don't mean the funny Golden Girls or the Golden Girls with personality. I mean Charlotte Flair, who has a personality of a wet blanket. They decide to just do that, and it was terrible. It was flat. It was really fucking flat, ironically, for somebody that isn't. And then she challenges Rhea Ripley. Okay, cool. Rhea Ripley, young upstart, been in the business a few years. Charlotte, established. This is your chance to make up for what you did at Mania 34 by having Asuka lose to Charlotte. And they didn't do that. This is what they basically did with the NXT Women's Championship. They took it and they did what Medusa did on that episode of Nitro. They threw it in the goddamn trash is what they fucking did. And here's why I'm fucking bothered. Because right now, you could say that Charlotte facing all these NXT women could be interesting and stuff like that. You know what would have been more interesting? Taking Rhea, somebody that was younger, that maybe just caught lightning in the bottle. Can she defend against every single one of these every single one of these challengers? That is. There is no goddamn way to make Charlotte versus a lot of these people interesting. Because Bianca's on Raw now. So, okay, you're taking that away. Charlotte versus Dakota. I'm not saying that the matches can't be good, but name one match that Charlotte has had where it wasn't against somebody established that was actually good. Name somebody that Charlotte helped make. I would love for somebody to say that. Because I can't think of anybody that she's helped make that has actually benefited from working with her where it's like, oh, they're not right back down the card. That's where I'm getting a little bit goddamn pissed. So they basically slapped all the women in the face in NXT by saying, hey, we know that none of you, Rhea Ripley included or whatever, can't draw all that much. So we're going to take somebody that's basically handpicked, nepotism at its goddamn finest. And we're going to just give her, we're going to give her the championship. She's going to work with you guys. And essentially it's going to do with the NXT women's division what we've done for the past couple years, which is not book it all that well. And there's some hardworking women there. Deonna Purrazzo has been made a jobber and all that stuff, and that will be another video for another day. But the whole reason that I kept doing all this stuff and tried to do a detailed rundown is until about late 2016, early 2017, it really wasn't the Charlotte problem, and then it became the Charlotte problem. Now, if she vanishes from WWE, hell, if she left WWE next year, I'm sorry, I wouldn't miss her. I really wouldn't fucking miss her. So I hope that this was a fair and impartial thing on this, but just I got angry during my Raw review about what Charlotte did about, what she's going to do with the NXT Women's Championship and stuff like that. Basically shit all over it is what she's going to do. So this is as much of an impartial look as I can come up with. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you have to say. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. But the NXT Women's Division is going to have a lot of rebuilding to do, and Charlotte ain't going to be able to fucking help with that. They think she can, but she can't. I'll see you soon.